Welcome to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz, your connection to insights from some of the top direct response marketing minds on the planet.
Hey, it's Brian Kurtz here, host of the Timeless Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a clip from one of the 2-hour calls inside Titan's Accelerator, my private mentorship program for direct response marketers. Before we get to that, I have one question for you. Do you have a marketing insurance policy? If you don't, you need one. And that's why I created Titan's Accelerator, which is one of the most giving communities and serves as the de facto board of advisors and marketing insurance policy for over 250 of the best and brightest direct response marketers, copywriters, media buyers, marketing agencies, senior executives, anyone in direct response marketing who is committed to growing and scaling their business. The bottom line, you don't have to grow your business alone. And you don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars either. Titan's Accelerator is 1/10 of the price of most groups of its kind. I know because I hosted a group that was over $20,000 a year. If you want to see how Titan's Accelerator can help you grow and scale your specific business, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BRIANKURTZ.net/help. And with a private membership, you'll receive access to the full presentation from today's episode, along with the Q&A and discussion that followed. As an added bonus, you'll receive access to a vault filled with many more private calls just like this one. Again, if you want to see if Titan's Accelerator is a fit for you with no obligation, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BRIANKURTZ.net/help. And feel free to email me directly. I respond to every email with questions about this episode or just to say hi at brian@briankurtz.net. Now on to today's episode.
Okay, where's Jason Fladlien? You're there somewhere, Jason. I've already done my insults of you, which was standard. That's the hazing part. But now I'm going to praise you. I've already, worked up a frenzy in this group, telling them that, Jason's going to just talk about the largest launch that's ever been done. No big deal. I just want to tell you a little bit about Jason. I met him at Genius Network, probably got to be 10 years ago at least, maybe more, maybe 12 years ago. I mean, I've been in 8. Oh, it's 8 years ago?
2014, yeah.
Okay, but I've been with Joe forever, so I have more scars than you do. So 8 years ago, Jason had this, big red scraggly beard. He came in his t-shirt and jeans, and just wowed everybody in the room. And I said, "Who is this guy?" And so at one of the breaks, we were talking, and we ended up talking about Gene Schwartz. I think he knew, or he might. I guess he might have known who I was, but he probably knew I had the rights to breakthrough advertising. So it was like he was my best friend immediately because he was talking my language, and we've been friends ever since. He's spoken at Titan's Mastermind. He's spoken at Titan's Masterclass when we had it in Cleveland. In fact, I invited him specifically because he wanted to be there with Dan Kennedy. So I specifically invited Jason for that event. And Jason is one of he's the number one guy in webinars. I mean, if there's a Watt, I mean, he's a lot of things and he can do a lot of different things, but he's the Watt for webinars and show up rates and getting the most out of your audience on video and online. He happened to do this $57 million launch, which, at Genius Network at the annual event, they had him do a 10-minute talk on it. And after the talk, I said, no, this doesn't deserve 10 minutes. This deserves an hour. So we're going to give Jason as long as he wants. I guess you'll decide, Jason, whether you want interaction or you want to just present. And this is a hungry group of marketers, copywriters. They're going to be like, bowing at your feet without you even saying a word, which is what you like, I know. But anyway, Jason is such a rock star. He's a good friend too, which makes it even better. And I'm so glad and you're coming up on another launch. So I
Yep.
know you're busy, and to take the time out to do this, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. And take it away, Jason.
My pleasure. Thank you, Brian. And yeah, day one of pre-launch this time. So what a good time to do this. The good thing is when you get a well-oiled machine going, you don't have to work as hard. I'm not going to pretend that it's automated because it certainly is not. But nonetheless, you can sleep a little bit better the second time around, theoretically, at least. We'll find out. So my name is Jason Fladlien. I'm co-creator of a company called Rapid Crush, founded in 2011 with my business partner, Wilson Matos. And when we say we did the biggest launch, the couple caveats to that, biggest internet marketing product launch, we're certainly not beating like an iPhone launch or anything like that. But in our space, where you typically sell courses to people who want to either learn how to make money online or make more money online, this is the record. So the joke I said was we did a $57 million launch, and I hope each and every one of you have a launch so big where you could round down $914,510. Not even worth saying out loud, because it's only a small fraction, $1 million essentially we're rounding down. So it's a $57 million launch, but if we want to be precise, it's $57,914,510. 226 days. I think that's even more important to understand. We literally were not in this market. We had no idea of this market. We had nothing really developed for it at all. Complete standing start. 226 days later, this is what we were looking at. So here's how I'd like this to go. I will keep an eye on the chat. I will present mostly, but I will circle in as it makes sense to and answer some questions, or if things pop up that I think are interesting to interject into the presentation, I will. So use your chat. And then if we have time at the end, we might be able to bring on some Q&A if that's cool with Brian. So I am a copywriter, of course, first and foremost, just so everybody knows. I am the webinar guy now. People say I'm the best in the world at webinars, so I don't argue with them. But the idea is I started as a copywriter, and I still view myself as a copywriter in the lens in which I think as is a copywriter in terms of the tactical level, and a strategist in terms of the visionary or the strategical level. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Here's my favorite stat of the launch. The money's nice, but statistically speaking, this to me was the most impressive stat. Was we closed 6.42% of total email opt-ins. And that's even crazier when you understand the bigger context, which is the product we're selling is a $3,500 product. Not only is it a $3,500 product, it's an all sales final, no refunds product. So essentially, there's no money back guarantee associated with it, which is what we typically do and which makes sense to do in most offers. Let's make it even more complicated, though. Customers were required to sign a non-disclosure agreement in order to get access to the product. And all of this is, of course, disclosed throughout the pitch and everything. And so it's a high ticket product without a money back guarantee attached to it that requires them to sign a legally binding non-disclosure agreement. And it's still converted at 6.42% to all those who opted in via email during any portion, whether it was a webinar registration or whether it was an ebook registration, any of the pre-marketing that they opted in for so we could get them on an email list. This is an insane conversion rate. I've had lesser conversion rates on $100 products, and certainly never anything close to this in my life. Now, just a little bit before we go any further is email marketing is king. I don't think there's a better way you can market than email when it comes to online. Now, obviously, the direct mail pros in the room, they know that's even more effective in terms of its ability to be mass marketed, yet still have that impact of one-to-one or that feeling of personalization. But online, email is like what mail is offline. So if you want to think about it, that's a good way to think about it, because social media is the craze these days. I don't have Facebook. I have 4 people I think that I'm friends with on Facebook. I'm related to 2 of them, and the other 2 work for me or something like that. I don't use it. I haven't posted on it in years. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Twitter. I wish I kept up on YouTube, because if I would put any time anywhere, it would be YouTube, but I don't. I'm not on TikTok. And we primarily focus almost exclusively 100% on getting people on an email list and then marketing to them over and over and over again via the email list. Not just marketing, of course, building a relationship with them and so on. Yeah, Brian?
I always say email still is the killer app. And that's coming out of a direct mail background. So you and I are so in tune on that. And I do believe that if you focused on YouTube, you not that you need to crush anything more because you're the rapid crush, but YouTube would be like your sweet spot.
And that's a good point. So you want to work in the medias that you're good at naturally, or that fit to you naturally if you can. But I will tell you, if you had to pick and choose one, I'm picking and choosing email for a variety of reasons. But here's the analogy I give. Conversating with a prospect on Facebook is like trying to have a conversation in a noisy nightclub. Whereas if you're conversating with a prospect via email, it's like having a coffee date with them, or it's like them inviting you into their home. So same person, even in 2 different situations, is going to respond differently. And I do believe that the conditions that the prospect is surrounded by can influence the decisions they make in that moment. So on Facebook, what does Facebook conjure up in your mind? Like political battles and people arguing and being controversial and sharing memes, whereas email is a lesser chaotic. And I believe that brings into the decision-making process what is surrounding the person. So email tends to be cleaner in terms of an actual conversation that can occur versus social media. But I digress, okay? So here's the beta launch now. So the conversation continues. See, I don't like to think in marketing campaigns. I like to think in conversations and stories. I want to create a story, not a campaign. A campaign seems to be more static. Story seems to be more interactive. A campaign seems to be more finite. And a story seems to be more infinite. So the story initially was, hey, Dan did this. Could he teach other people to do it? Well, he could, but could he teach them to do it in a group setting as opposed to a one-on-one setting? So the story continues. You feel me? The story continues. And the audience is along for the ride the whole time. We're building on these things. It's not just point of sale. We're creating an extended story. Here's what also is great. Those people over there paid $10,000. You're not going to pay $10,000. Yeah, now it's a different modality. It's group versus one-on-one. We disclose that, of course. But the information is exactly the same. So now people are going to get a discount of $7,500. They're not going to pay $2,500. See the psychological difference there? So that was for the audience. And then what we said internally is to say, how quickly can we launch this son of a gun? We got to get it going fast. And that's when we rolled out that beta, which I'm going to break down here now. You want to talk about Eugene Schwartz, level of sophistication of the market, or the cycle of the market, right? Is it goes in 5 cycles, and it's a circle. So a market starts out very unsophisticated, over time goes ultimately super sophisticated, and then that sophistication breaks upon itself and it goes back to being simple again. It's fascinating. I've seen it a million times. And so this is what we did. So I wrote all this copy here. This was the original webinar invitation we sent out. If you're in crypto or thinking about investing, you must attend this one-of-a-kind web event. Out of context, just in general, as a headline on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate that headline? Knowing what you know about copywriting, knowing what's supposed to be in a headline, and knowing what a good headline is, a great headline and a bad headline, on a scale of 1 to 10, you will not hurt my feelings. What's the quality of that headline? If we put this up against 100 other classic headlines, it would not score very well. It's a 5. Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's a 5, maybe. Okay. Or it's like an LA 3. I don't know. It's not that good. Okay. From a technical standpoint, it's not that good. Because good headline writing needs more to it. It needs more excitement to it. It needs some sort of innovation to it. Ideally, some sort of thing to make it stand out. And maybe you pull and call an audience out and all that kind of stuff, yada, yada, yada. But this was stage one of the market. Stage one of the market, especially who we were reaching. It was mostly people that were in crypto and had no idea what the hell they were doing or wanted to be in crypto because they didn't want to miss out. So the best way to do it is not to dress it up. It's to hit it straight on. Sometimes I think a lot of us, we outsmart ourselves. And that's a tragedy. We outsmart ourselves. Sometimes the best thing to do, I used to do this on webinars for years. I'd say, hey, today I got two intentions. Intention number one, I want to show you how to do X, Y, and Z. And then intention number two, I want to sell you a product at the end of this webinar. Now, I don't want you to buy the product at the end unless I can make good on showing you how to do X, Y, Z. But if I can make good on showing you X, Y, Z, then do I have your permission to sell you this product at the end? And they'd say, yes. Wow, how simple was that? Okay, now I just got to hopefully be able to teach X, Y, Z. If I can do that, maybe I can make some money. It wasn't like, oh, I'm pretending that I'm doing this thing out of the goodness of my heart. And really what I'm doing is creating reciprocity. No, it wasn't that complicated. We make it complicated. So you start the easiest way possible. And that's what we did. Basic page, plain Jane, nothing fancy about this. Just get it out there and hit the market with where they're at. Meet the prospect where they're at. Enter the conversation in their mind. This is what it was. Now, here's what we did when we sold beta. Here's a massive mistake that I see people making in their marketing all the way from the top to the bottom. It doesn't seem to matter how successful you are or aren't. Give me 10 marketers, at least 9 of them are going to be making this mistake. And it's called incongruency. So we're launching in beta. So even though we could build a beautiful looking page, it would look lovely and wonderful, and it could be like 8 pages long in terms of the copy and really break down everything they get. What's the problem with that? If this is in beta, don't you see how that's incongruent? But sometimes we just send it through marketing, and marketing is like, well, it's got to look this way because this is what a page looks like, and it's got to do these things, and we have the capabilities because we've been doing this for years, so let's make it look really nice. Then it doesn't comply with beta positioning. Whatever your position is, the more you are in congruence with it, the better, and the more you are out of congruence with it, the worse. It should look rough if it's in beta. That's right, Lisa. You're absolutely right. So this is it. This was the pitch, the planned beta course access. We had to define this. So this is something we learned early on. People didn't know what beta meant. Okay, good. This is why I like webinars, because we can make changes in real time. It means this is what we said. It means you should not expect the course to be polished, nor expect it to flow flawlessly. Instead, you should expect it to be rough and bumpy at first. However, rest assured, Dan will teach everything you need to know to implement phase 1 of the plan and see its benefits firsthand. Dan may also run subsequent, and I didn't write this because if I did, I would have not used subsequent in the copy, but nonetheless, whatever, it doesn't matter. Dan may also run subsequent beta versions of the course, and if he does, you will be able to attend each time. When he releases the finished course, although we cannot promise if and when that will happen, you will also get access to that completed course. So, the sentences are too long. They're too runny on, right? They use big words like subsequent in the copy, but this goes to show you, because this is beta, that's all okay. Just get it out there. And then why should you join the beta course? A few reasons. One is you save money. When we release it, it's going to be more. And the second, the sooner you do this, the better the results. Okay. When I would sell this on webinars, I'd say, listen, I don't care. You can wait. Some people need to wait 6 to 8 months before they decide that a good idea is worth pursuing. Other people are okay doing it now. I would say things like that. I would tease them, right? Like, if you're somebody who cares about the gift wrapping of what's inside the box, that you equate the gift wrapping of it as just as important, then wait, because we'll give you the best of both worlds. But right now, if you're okay with taking it in a brown paper bag, I got you, right? And so this is what beta looked like. So beta originally was 2,500 one time or 3 installments of 1,000. Now here's what's interesting. So some of this is calculated, but some of this is observed and then adjusted over time, because in beta, it made sense to have no refunds, because we'd say, listen, don't expect it to be polished. So only join this if you're ready. So we're only taking people who are already in. Later on, if you need the insurance policy of a guarantee, if you're one of those dip your toe in the water type of folks, when we launch this in full, we'll probably put that in there. Okay. Now, what happened was when we sold this with the no refund policy, we discovered that we felt, based on how people showed up and based on how people interacted with the offer, that it was probably in the best interest of the market to keep it with a no refunds policy. Psychologically, we felt that was in for this offer, not for every offer, but for this offer, we felt that made sense. So we ended up staying no refunds the whole way. Crazy. So, I've seen big launches, not as big as ours, if I can gloat for a moment, right? Forgive me, I'm only human. And I've seen launches that have done really well, but have 20% refund rates. That's pretty typical in this type of market, this type of environment, especially with this type of economy. And when it's all said and done, we had a sub 3% refund rate when it was all said and done. And so not only did we do big numbers, we got to keep most of what we had. And even on the payment plans, we made people sign agreements. So when they sign the NDA, they also sign a user agreement. The user agreement, if they take the payment plan, it says, hey, listen, you are on the hook for all 4 of these payments. This isn't something you just cancel out after a payment or 2 if you don't like it. You have made a commitment and you'll see it through. So our collection on the installments is so damn high too. It's way higher than industry standards because, it's kind of cool to put it on the marquee, 57 million. But at the end of the day, my bank account only does net. It only does after all things are collected. And that's more important to me than the marquee number. So we do both. We get a big number on the marquee and we keep as much of it as humanly possible. Now, here's what's funny about this. I don't do the first half of the webinar. The formal portion of the webinar, Dan does, and he does a wonderful job because we have sharpened the axe so much that the webinar doesn't have to be like every word calculated, tons of slides, any of that stuff that it normally needs to be. So here's the structure. Dan says, here's how I discovered and then perfected these things called crypto bots. Here's what happened when I started showing it to friends and associates. Pretty good stuff. Now, here's why I'm going to show this to you on the webinar today. By the way, I see this missing in most people's webinars. Like, are you Santa Claus? Are you just giving stuff away for free? No. You got to explain the context of why you would be willing to kill yourself to build a whole webinar and put yourself out there to help somebody else out. Why sharing it, how it works, specifically what crypto automations are, even what Bitcoin is, all that kind of stuff, Dan's own results. And then the thing that makes the thing, here's all 18 of our one-on-one results, all of them. These people take $10,000 for the same information that we're going to offer you later at a lesser price. Here's all of their results. And we've shown this and we continue to show this for the next launch coming up when we start doing webinars, which is I think May 4th is our first one or May 3rd, something like that. We will still show all 18 of these. This is like fine wine. The more we show them, the better it gets because they continue to have done them now about a whole year in. Insane. And then here's where I come in. After Dan does the formal close of here's the product, here's what it's about, here's where you can go to get it, here's the particulars on the delivery. He hands it over to me and says, okay, now, Jason, you've been watching questions in the chat as well. I'm going to hand it to you. Let's answer some questions. And then what I will typically do, I lead point on this. Sometimes I bring Will in. Sometimes I bring Dan back in, but usually Dan's done by then. And I will close for hours. So it takes Dan about 90 minutes to get through the presentation and hand it over to me. And then I will typically close for 2 or 3 hours after that, which sounds like a lot because it is a lot, but it's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of other things that I could be doing. So to choose to specifically stay on and close like that means that it's worth it. I don't know a better activity that I could be doing at the time. Now, if I may explain a little bit why this is important. And forgive me, Brian, I'm probably going to run a little longer if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording it. And so, yeah, people need to leave, they leave, but we're going to get the most. I'm going to suck you dry.
Okay, good. So closing is important for a couple of reasons. And not
this is
just
awesome,
the reason.
By the way, Jason.
Thank you.
Do after seeing this in 10 minutes, what a crime that was.
I know, right?
It's like they pay 20. Here, now I want these people to know. People pay $25,000 in Genius Network to get 10 minutes for a $57 million launch. You pay in this group between $1,500 and $2,000, and we get the best of the best. How good is that, man?
You're just an awesome individual there, Brian. That's why.
Well, because you're an awesome individual.
Well, I mean, awesome attracts awesome. So, all right, let's talk closing. So, first year in my career as a webinar, wannabe webinar guy, there was no manuals. There was no Eugene Schwartz books of webinars back then. We had to all make it up. And so my biggest breakthrough ever in webinars was I was on a webinar one day. Had about 40 or 50 people on, and I was selling a product that was like $300, something like that, right? And my close was done. My slides were over with. I didn't know what the hell else to do, but the chat was kind of like this chat. People were in there, they were communicating, they were saying things, right? And I'm like, well, what the hell else I'm gonna do? Let me see if I can close one or two more. So I went for an hour answering every question. And when there wasn't questions, poking and prodding to get more questions, all of that kind of stuff, right? And after an hour, I'd close two more sales. So I just made like $600 an hour. Back then, and for most of you today, $600 an hour is a lot of money. And so I'm like, well, there's still people on the chat. Let me go another hour. So just ad hoc, just conversating, I closed another person after an hour. I made $300 an hour. So I was thinking at the time, well, that was fantastic. What I didn't realize is there was something even more important happening than the point of sale money that I was making. What do you think that was? What do you think really was the value? There was two things, actually. Okay. The first one was I learned how to communicate and how to handle objections and really how to understand my market and what the problems and what the challenges they were on those extra hours. That's when it really gets real. That's when you go deep. That's when you say, listen, I've done the same price objection close 100 times. This is boring. Let me just make up new ones because I got nothing else to do. That's when the real good closes started coming out of me. That's when a lot of the things that now, people have studied me and have modeled me, because the closes that I've come up, that's when the close comes up when somebody says to me, Jason, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I said, are you afraid you're going to fail, or are you afraid you're going to succeed? Because you know what failure's like. I would tell people this. You know what failure's like. You don't like it, but you're comfortable with it. It's like a security blanket to you. You have no idea what success is going to be like. So are you afraid of failure, or are you afraid of success? Because success is something completely new to you for this. And they'd say, well, I never thought of it that way. And that sometimes could shake a person loose. And then they could be more receptive to seeing if this is the right thing for them or not. So I learned all kinds of closes like that, right? I learned empathy closes. I learned it's easier when somebody says it costs too much, or you say, absolutely, it costs too much to the wrong person. Are you the wrong person, though? Oh, damn. That's a good one, isn't it? Right? That's when you pick up on some of those other ones. Or somebody says it's expensive and you say, yeah, it's expensive. Yet is it worth doing? Because my mama told me that it's worth doing something even if it's hard to do. If it's the right thing to do, you do it even if it's hard. So yes, it's expensive. And you're going to do it anyway, if it's the thing you need to do. So is it the thing you need to do? And we break that down. Okay. Yeah, that's when you learn to speak in visuals, because Eric says failure, a comfort blanket. Like I would use a close one time. I'd say, listen, your fear's not going to go away when you do this, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to put fear in the passenger seat and put that damn seatbelt on fear. It's going to come along for the ride, but it ain't steering the car anymore. Now you're driving it. Tell me, how does that feel? And that's when sales happen. That's when you understand the fears and you understand the limitations of the market. You can't get that market research anywhere else. You also get really good at your craft too. Do it a couple thousand times. Do it a couple thousand times. And then you'll be amazed at how good you get at it. Okay. But here's the other thing that happens. Here's what happens in the prospect's mind when you close like this. They say, damn, nobody else in my market does this. Nobody else hangs in there with me like this. Nobody else is willing to go the extra mile like this. So if I'm going to put my faith in anybody, it's not going to be those who left me. It's not going to be those who stopped. It's going to be those who went the extra mile. And that's showing, not telling. You can tell somebody you care about them, or you could show it. You could tell somebody you understand them, or you could show it. And that's, where I shine. So I would do the closes, and we made so much money there. I'll never forget it. He almost had a damn heart attack because we made a huge blunder on day one of the launch, the big launch. We had 2 webinars back to back. We had a webinar at noon, and we had a webinar at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And the webinar at 4 was a big one. It was Bob Proctor. And unfortunately, he's passed. So rest in peace. God bless you, Bob. I think we might have been the last webinar that he did. And so we had Bob scheduled at 4 as a big webinar. Bob's just a titan, right? And we had our noon webinar. Now, our noon webinar was our general webinar. So instead of a private webinar with an affiliate, we just had every affiliate who wanted to mail a general webinar. So we had 11,000 people on this webinar, 11,000 and some change. And we get to hour 4 and I'm still closing, and there's 3,000 people on the call still. We lost $1 million that day. I know we did. Okay. Because we had to close it and start the next webinar because it was on the same account. I mean, I didn't have too much regrets over it. It happens. Will, on the other hand, man, he was just brokenhearted. Yeah, he is hard for him. But that the closes also help us realize when we're off the mark. So if the questions keep coming up over and over again, we've missed something in the presentation itself. We've missed something in the emails. We've missed something in the positioning, blah, blah, blah. Get it, right? So that's the structure of the webinar. Now, when you go as big as we did, you can't.
Thanks for listening to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz. Visit briankurtz.net and click podcast at the top of the page for a full transcript and show notes. If you're interested in working with Brian personally inside of Titans Accelerator, go to briankurtz.net/help to see how Titans can help you grow and scale your business. That's briankurtz.net/help.